Go ahead. I had to start the recording again. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Caught me off guard.
Are we ready?
Yes.
Okay, great. I just love Zoom. Okay. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining tonight's full board, Community Board 3 full board Zoom meeting. Before we get started we start with our public session, which is the first part of our meeting. And I'm going to ask that our first Vice Chair, Michael Marino, please explain the Zoom guidelines.
Sure. Sorry. Again, folks, welcome to our meeting. So as I mentioned earlier, chat box is being used right now mainly for attendance purposes. So if you are a member of the public, just type in your name and any affiliation into the chat box and let us know that you're here. We do this for attendance purposes. If you have any technical issues during the meeting and need some technical assistance, you can put that in the chat box as well. Those are the only two things that we're using the chat box for. Actually, I lied. There's a third thing we're using the chat box for. If you are a representative of an elected official and your elected official is joining us, you need to let us know in the chat box so that we call on them and don't call you. So those are the three things we're going to be using the chat box for. We will not be using the chat box for back and forth conversation or side conversations about items that are being discussed. If that starts occurring, we will turn the chat off. We want to keep the meeting focused on the actual visual and audio part of the meeting and not the chat box turning into another meeting. Other than that, those of you who signed up to speak in public session, I will be moving you over to a panelist so that you can make your comments, and then I'll move you back over when you're done. If you are a board member or an elected official's rep or an elected official and you wound up as an attendee instead of as a panelist, just raise your hand and either myself or Linda will move you over into the panelist. I believe that covers everything, Alicia.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, so I just want to explain what public session is for community board for the visitors that we have that have never attended a community board meeting. So the public session is an opportunity for members of the community to address issues or concerns about our community, and it's a timed, respectively, 2 minutes. We ask that everyone please honor the 2-minute rule so that everyone gets an opportunity to share and we can move the meeting along and so forth, okay? So if you are a person that wishes to speak during our public session, you have to submit a speaker form on noon by Monday, the day before the full board meeting, noon before full board meeting, okay? That is when we submit our speaker forms, and so that we have an opportunity to look them over and prepare for you to speak. If at this time, now we are going to, and the instructions and the instructions and the form are found on our website. Okay, on the Community Board 3 website. So please go to the website and find the form. Thank you very much. Okay, now we're going to start it off. Here we go. First speaker tonight is Kelly Overbay. Kelly Overbay.
Hold on, sorry, I haven't moved her over yet. Give me 2 seconds. Kelly, where are you, Kelly? I saw you earlier. There you are. Okay.
Hi.
Hi, Kelly.
Hi, thank you for giving me a moment. Thank you, Ms. Stetzer, for getting back to me. I wasn't really clear what to do, but I'll just tell you, I had written down notes, so I'm gonna have to exit out of the full screen so I can see them. Sorry about that. Okay. I live in the East Village. I live at 58 St. Mark's Place. The building next door to me to the west, 56 St. Mark's Place, has been very problematic in terms of really, in my opinion, egregious noise. They have several outdoor spaces in the back and the middle of the block, and we've had problems with this building over the years. Lately, they flared up again. The people with the street level back decks and the outside space in the middle of the block are throwing really large parties, which I suspect it's possible they may be charging. There are upwards of 50 people. They amplify music. This goes on for hours. There are also nightly gatherings on the roof with kids where they're drinking alcohol and screaming. It's a noise problem for sure. It's also a safety issue, especially with the roof. And the parties and the gatherings, there are no social distancing or mask wearing. So it's also a public health issue, in my opinion. Neighbors have been in touch, and we're organizing, we're getting contact lists together. We're in touch with an NCO officer from the police, Mr. Condi. And, not much is being done except that I hope the board could maybe help compel Helm management to hold their tenants accountable, because especially in the time during COVID, when we all have to be home, it's just very stressful to have to deal with that. And I'm also concerned because if 56 St. Mark's Place has been zoned suddenly to be a restaurant, bar.
Kelly, you have like 10 seconds.
I would like to know if they've been zoned to be an outside door bar club, because if they haven't, that's the way they're behaving.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. Susan would like to respond to you.
Okay.
Susan, you're muted.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So Kelly is, I just emailed, we'll work with you to follow up with the police. We actually just got a new commanding officer yesterday who I've not met yet, but I will be meeting with them. And this is a frequent type of issue that we need to deal with. So we will stay in touch on this.
Okay, shall I email you or expect to hear from you? Or
you can expect to hear from me, but give me about a week, because I want to wait to meet with the new commanding officer.
Okay, do you mind giving me his name if you know it off?
I don't.
No worries. Then I look forward to emailing with you further. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you also, Kelly. Okay, our next speaker tonight is Rocky Chen. Rocky?
Can you hear me?
Yes, Rocky.
Okay, great. Okay. I'm Rocky Chen. It's great to be here. The Zoom format is very interesting. I'm a resident of Gouverneur Gardens. We have a few of our members here on the community board. And you probably know Gouverneur has 21-story buildings that are on Montgomery and Water Street, just across from the FDR Drive and the southernmost portion of the East River Park and Pier 42. We love this park, and I'm sure all of you in the board love this park. So I speak tonight in support of the Lower East Side Ecology Center's compost yard. I'm a compost person myself, but this yard is a very important part. I urge Community Board 3 to pass a resolution calling upon the Parks Department, Mayor de Blasio, DDC, and ORR to ensure that the Lower East Side Ecology Center be included in the East River Coastal Resiliency planning process, and the compost yard be included in all posted information about ESCRA and written into all ESCRA documents regarding the park. ESCRA is moving ahead, and we've been through a lot of agony over this, but at some point, the Ecology Center is going to be forced to leave East River Park, and it has no guarantee from the Parks Department that the compost yard will be allowed to return to the park after construction. I understand that the construction drawings that are out for bid do not show a compost yard. This must be corrected. The Lower East Side Ecology Center has been a fierce advocate for and a dedicated steward of the East River Park for over 3 decades. The Community Compost Program has served as a pioneering model for other groups to start food waste collection programs across the 5 boroughs and across other cities in the nation. The Ecology Center should be included in the planning process regarding the final design of the compost yard, and working with the Ecology Center will result in a better final design. Put the compost yard into the written documents, and let's work together to make for a better park. Thank you.
Thank you, Rocky. Next, we have David Bolotsky.
Thank you. Like Rocky, I want to speak in favor of the Lower East Side Ecology Center's compost yard. I think if we take a step back, and I should mention I'm a resident, live in Hillman Housing on Grand Street. And if we think about why we're having to essentially destroy East River Park, or at least it has been decided that we have to destroy the park because of climate change. And one of the ways that we can combat climate change is by composting. And so there's some, I would say, bitter in the fact that we...
That's okay, Linda's taking care of that.
Sorry.
Go ahead, David.
So I think there's some irony in the fact that the compost yard is not currently included in the plans for the redesigned East River Park. And I think it's important, number one, to encourage local composting, and number two, from an education perspective. So I think this is very important and would echo Rocky's support for this project.
Thank you, David.
You're welcome.
All right, I believe the next person is Harriet Cohen. Harriet, are you on?
So I'll write his name.
Hi, my name is Harriet Cohen. I used to be a public member of the board. I'm a longtime community resident. I fell in love with East River Park many years ago when I tried being a runner at the 5th Street track. At the time, it was near my home on East 4th Street. Running never became a passion, but walking has become a constant over the years. Now I live a little further downtown at Grand and Essex. My love for what East River Park has to offer has only deepened during the last 6 months and COVID, and I'm a dependent lover. It became my go-to place, or it is my go-to place for walks, reading, meeting up socially distanced with friends, and importantly, composting. I'm truly grateful for the Lower East Side Ecology Center on all that it has done to help our local environment and especially its composting stations. Now I carry my composting with me on my walks to East River Park. I want to say that it is imperative that the composting station currently located in the park within close proximity to the entrance at Corlear's Hook Park must become a permanent park when East River Park is rebuilt for coastal resilience. Composting is another important aspect of rejuvenation and environmental enhancement that is so sorely needed. Someone has said that composting is not compatible with a new park, but for those of us who live within its locale, in public housing, the co-ops, the Mitchell-Lamas, and the tenement buildings, we know the importance of having this resource within proximity to our homes. We have an important personal relationship with the park and composting. We are its guardians. Community Board 3 should urge the Parks Department to re-explore and reconsider the need to include an accessible composting station in
Harriet, I hate to cut you off, honey.
Okay,
One over your two.
I think you got it.
Okay, thank you, Harriet. Okay,
You're welcome.
our next speaker is Ellen Garvey.
Hi. Hello. I live in Hillman Houses, and I'd like to speak also in favor of maintaining the composting station that's now located so easily accessible to the Corlear's Hook entrance to the park. And I speak both as a garbage bringer, because it's a very convenient place to bring that that garbage and to be aware, to make ourselves aware of how necessary it is not to add to the burden of the city's already overstressed collection system. And this is one way we do that. And it's one way also we make ourselves aware each time we do it of how important that circle of life is. I think we've all become more dependent, more aware of green things in our lives, of the trees, of plants in this COVID season. Everybody remarks on it. And this is a way that we and children also can start to see how that's built. Now, I speak also as a member of the Hillman Yard, one of the 3 gardens along Broome Street that have reclaimed a trash area for flowers and vegetable gardening and just contemplative space. Much of that gardening is done with the compost brought from the composting center in the East River Park. And to lose that also incredibly necessary green space that we have that's in the, especially if we lose the East River Park, we need to be able to enhance that green space in our those small pockets of green all over the lower, that are so in such short supply on the Lower East Side. So everybody else, Rocky Chin, made clear how that has to happen, and Harriet Cohen already explained more about what the place of the Lower East Side Ecology Center is. I just want to
10 seconds.
as a user of the compost itself in the garden.
Thank you. Thank you, Ellen. Okay, next we have Joyce Ravitz.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
I want to thank everybody at the community board, and I wish I saw you in person, as I did many years ago. I have lived near the East River Park for almost 50 years. Now I live even closer for the past 30 years. I want to urge people in CB3 to have the city change the plans to include the Lower East Side Ecology Center and Compost Yard in the plans for the new park. The short-term thinking responsible for getting rid of the compost center should also be gotten rid of, and we should have the compost center for all the reasons the last 2 speakers have spoken about. Thank you very much. I did it in less than a minute.
Thank you, Joyce. Okay, Michael, we had a person named Howard Huey.
Yeah, I need to move him over. Hold on one second. All right, Howard, you should be able to speak now. Howard, are you there?
Oh, sorry. Hi, my name is Howard Huey from NUBC Neighbors United below Canal Street, and I would like to thank CB3 for their help in our fight against the borough-based jail near Chinatown. It's been a long fight. I know you supported us. I'd like to thank your land use committee, along with Susan Stelzer and the rest of CB3 for passing the resolution jointly with CB1. It's been, as I said, it's been a long battle. When we started this fight, a lot of people said it was a done deal and we're wasting our time, but it just proves that if you have a sound and just cause and keep on fighting, we can beat the Goliaths in this, which is New York City in this case. And we did win, and we stopped the jail. So I just want to thank CB3 about it. Also, Judge Kelly in his ruling had mentioned CB3 and said that one of the most affected area was Chinatown, which is part of CB3, and they should have been part of the community engagement. So I just want to mention that and thank everybody for the help.
Thank you, Howard. Okay. I do believe that was our final speaker for tonight. Okay.
Yes.
Can you hear me, Michael?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Okay, so I do believe that was our final speaker for tonight. for the public session. So we are going to close our public session and now enter into our elected officials report. Michael, take it away.
Sure. So folks, I'm going to be running the elected officials report again. If you are a rep, we're going to give you 2 minutes and we're going to time that as well. If your elected is on, just let us know. So far, I've seen in the chat that we're going to be joined by Deborah Glick, Brad Hoyleman, and Gail Brewer at some point. If there's anybody I missed, let me know.
Senator Cavanaugh is here.
Senator Cavanaugh, awesome. So right now, is there anybody on from the mayor's office? Andrew, you with us? How about public advocate's office? All right. Luke, are you with us from the comptroller's office?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you. So Luke Wolf, City Comptroller Scott Stringer's office. I hope everyone's doing well. Back to school is obviously top of mind right now, so I'll just briefly spend a minute speaking about our work in that capacity, which included the comptroller joining many community residents at the rally in March last week, where he spoke about the need to make sure to open schools safely. The comptroller also released his 2020-2021 back to school guide, which has a lot of really valuable information for parents and families, including on how they can engage in their school, on virtual learning, health guidelines for multilingual learners, students with special education needs, and that's available in English, Chinese, and Spanish. And I'll make sure to drop that in the chat, and please spread it to the rest of your school communities, as I hope that is helpful for them as they start this obviously challenging and unprecedented year. The comptroller also has been focusing on the need for, to make sure we serve homeless students. So there are 100,000 students experiencing homelessness in the city, and we're pushing the DOE and the mayor to appoint a point person for the student population so we can address the specific issues to them, which includes the unreliable internet in city shelters, the location and accessibility of learning bridge programs, and making sure that if students want to request a transfer to a school closer to their shelter, they're able to do so to make sure that school and education is more accessible for those families. Similarly, on the note of internet, the comptroller is pushing the same companies who offered the free internet to students last spring to do so again this fall. It's only becoming more important that students have access to internet at home, and we think that companies should need to step up and do their part to make that a reality. Lastly, to end on a positive note, at the start of the COVID pandemic, the comptroller announced a prevailing wages initiative in order to hopefully return money back to workers, which was stolen from them or not properly provided to them by their employees. And we are happy to announce that we have returned over $2 million to workers across New York City, and it did a number of different Know Your Rights workshops for workers across the city, working with a bunch of community groups. So that's obviously a big win. We have more work to do there to make sure that all workers get their fair share, but we're happy that we've been able to turn $2 million so far. I will drop our back to school guide in the chat as well, my email address, so please feel free to reach out if there's anything else I can do to help you all.
Thanks, Luke. Appreciate it. We're going to backtrack a little bit. Sorry about that. And we're going to go to some of our elected officials that are on with us. So we're going to start with Senator Cavanaugh.
Great. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you very much. I realize you have a busy meeting and lots of speakers, so I'll try to be brief. But, you know, thank you for continuing to have these forums in this virtual world we're in. And thank you, obviously, Susan and Alicia, for all of your work and all the members and staff of the board. A few quick updates on local issues. The Rutgers Tube, we had a public forum a week and a half ago to discuss the MTA's preparations for that. The work has now begun. You know, we're interested if people are having, there's a website specifically dedicated to the project the MTA has. We'll drop the link in the chat, but if people are having ongoing concerns about how that's working and how the the mitigations and alternative routes are working, we'd like to hear about them. The MTA has been pretty responsive and again joined us for this forum so everybody could hear directly from them. I did have the experience on the weekend of walking into a station and it was announced there was no service at all and it was supposed to be part of the alternative for this, and I was very disturbed until I realized that was a result of the derailment, which was obviously a big very disruptive thing, and fortunately no fatalities. But A couple of other updates. I'm glad to see so many people here supporting the Lower East Side Ecology Center. I also support keeping the compost yard in the neighborhood, even if it can't remain on its current site, and making sure that it is returned to the park as soon as possible when the park is completed. And I've joined all of our local elected officials in expressing that very strongly to the city. And so we're waiting for further conversations with them about that. I also just note the jail decision, which, as was noted, really does have a wider effect than the individual community board in which it's located. And I, had made this point repeatedly that if you start a process with one site and you do this scoping and then you the scope of work, and then you decide to build a different building on a different site, that probably that all that initial work is no longer a valid basis for what you're doing proceeding. Repeatedly told the city that that was among the basis for the judge's ruling that took the rare step of annulling and voiding basically all of the approvals of that jail site. So that's going to be an ongoing conversation, but I think it's an example of the city rather really not taking community engagement and their own processes seriously. On the legislative front, we had our second hearing on discrimination in the housing market. This was originally spurred by some very great investigative journalism in Newsday that demonstrated that there is very common and very bad practices going on in the sales market among brokers and salespeople of homes on Long Island. We've had testimony that makes it clear that it is not just a Long Island problem, and it is not just related to the sales market. It's also the ongoing discrimination in the rental market. So we had our second hearing last week. We took the unusual step of subpoenaing all of the people that were mentioned in the investigation who declined to come the first time. This has been delayed because of COVID. We had scheduled this as an in-person hearing in April. It had to be postponed, but we did have dozens of witnesses come. We went to court during the hearing to compel a few additional witnesses, and we have our third hearing this coming Friday on this. And we do have a package of legislation that really is intended to strengthen New York's statutory commitment to fair housing. I'm happy to talk about the details of that if people are interested. Continuing on housing, the eviction moratorium, the good news is, I think since the last time I was with you all, it has been extended. The bad news, it's only been extended until next Wednesday, September 30th. As I think I've talked about here before, I believe that we ought to do a statutory version. I have a bill that would extend it through January 20th. I'm also the co-sponsor of a bill that would extend it further, sponsored by my colleague Zellner Myrie. Those bills are also pending in the Assembly. But in the meantime, we need to extend this. The courts have exercised the power to do that and should continue if necessary. And the legislature and the governor should step in if necessary. But we need to make sure that we stand for the principle that nobody should be evicted from their home during this ongoing crisis. To confuse matters, the CDC announced its own version of an eviction moratorium. It is broader in the sense that it affects the entire United States. It is not as comprehensive and not as protective as the state moratorium. So although it's helpful if we were to allow the New York moratorium to expire, it is not sufficient, and we should still proceed with a state level moratorium. And again, I've been urging that this not be done piecemeal every 30 days or so, but that we do a longer period, at least through the end of the year. On small businesses, similarly, yesterday, the governor announced an executive order extending the moratorium on COVID-related commercial evictions until October 20th. Again, 1 month, and he's been doing those in short spurts. That is, again, good news. And I will continue to urge that we not wait until October 20th to extend it. In this case, the governor waited until September 21st to extend a mortgage term that expired on September 20th. Again, I think it'd be better if the courts and the parties, potential business owners and property owners all have greater security and advance notice about what's going to be in place to protect them. I think my staff has talked about the COVID-19 Small Business Recovery Lease Act, which is our effort to link reductions in property taxes with long-term affordable leases for businesses. Happy to take questions about that. We did have, I think, a formal announcement of that since your last meeting and have gotten a lot of support from small business owners and lots of other folks all around the state, all around the city. So we really are pushing that. We've, I think, again, probably talked about this before, but we did take a lot of steps to make the voting process easier during COVID. Please, if you are planning on voting, if you're planning on voting absentee, please request your absentee ballot as soon as possible and send it on in. Where, you know, the post office is going to be, even in the best of circumstances, it's going to be challenging to get those ballots processed. Of course, some people suspect there may be other motives, at least in some parts of the country, around the post office. But really, if you're planning on doing it that way, do it soon. And I would just remind people that early voting may provide an opportunity to do it at a convenient time that may avoid crowds, which of course we all want to do, continue to do during this time. All similarly, fill out the census. If you haven't done it, it's September 30th. Please tell your friends. We're still at 59% completion rate, which is a few points lower than the national average, and jeopardizes $700 million in at least in money in public, $700 billion in public money, plus numerous other congressional representation and other things. Just a quick public service announcement. We are having a town hall tomorrow. It is on youth civic engagement. It is from 7 to 8 p.m. We have great panelists. I will be moderating, but letting the young people do the talking. It's aimed at people in high school and maybe college or a little bit older. It should be really great. It'll be online, Zoom, interactive, fun. Please tell young people to join us. And we do have a teen community board member who's going to talk about the joys of community boards as well. I think I will stop there. As always, my staff and I are available to assist you. I think our Director of Community Affairs, Chantal Cabrera, is here tonight. And I think she'll share her contact information in the chat. And I'm happy to take questions or comments.
We've got a couple of questions for you, Senator. Trevor Holland.
Just a quick question, and it won't be answered probably here, but unfortunately, the Rutgers Tube meeting was held on the same night as the Parks meeting, which discussed the East Side Coastal Resiliency and the Two Bridges Waterfront. So my first question is that meeting available online for us to watch?
Yes, it is. The entire thing is available in English, Spanish, Mandarin, and Cantonese. And I believe it is linked at the MTA's site, their information site on this. And we'll get it to, and we apologize for the scheduling conflict. It was very challenging to get the MTA and everybody together for it. That is, I'll put it in the chat if that's okay.
Sure. That's fine.
It's there.
And the second question is, did they discuss the air ventilation fan that's at Rutgers and South Street, what you're doing work on for Sandy-related work?
There was a lot discussed. I do not believe that specifically came up. It's possible it was in one of the slides. There were a lot of slides that showed lots of things going on, but I'm happy to follow up with you and have that conversation and get whatever information you need about that.
Sure, thank you.
Great.
Thank you. Michelle Cooper-Smith.
Thank you, Senator Cavanaugh, for coming tonight. New Jersey just announced that it's going to be taxing millionaires. When are we going to start doing the same? Cuomo's budget director responded that the cumulative tax rate in New York City would be higher than the New Jersey tax rate that's being raised, but like we need money. So what are we going to do about that?
I agree with you. I've avoided kind of hanging my hat on any particular tax plan. We need substantial amounts of revenue. We had been until recently hoping that the federal government was going to come through with its relief package. I will say if the federal government does not come through with relief, the choices New York State is going to have to make are going to be really ugly, even with our best attempts to raise revenue. But there's a number of options. I'm formally supporting a proposal to tax. It's basically taxes unrealized capital gains of very wealthy people. Usually you don't pay taxes on that until you sell the assets, but lots of people's fortunes have grown very substantially during this. So the proposal that I'm supporting there would generate $5.5 billion. And again, that should be realizable immediately. Income taxes tend to come in later because you're taxing future income. So there's a variety, there's a whole bunch of proposals. My colleagues and I have said it publicly, the leader of both legislative houses have said it publicly, we are not going to cut our way out of this. We're not going to get all that we need from the federal government. Whatever we get from the federal government, we need to do substantial progressive revenue aiming at people who are still doing well to make sure they're paying their fair share. So I'm with you. I don't want to, you know, the budget director does have on a technical level has a point, you know, like we have a city income tax. So our highest marginal rate on income is higher than the Jersey rate, even with their new thing. But, you know, there are a lot of people doing very well who are not getting taxed enough given the crisis. So I'm with you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Senator Cavanaugh. All right, we're going to change things up and go in like a wacky order tonight because it's what I feel like. Assemblymember Glick.
It messes. There we are. Okay, I'm unmuted. First of all, for those to whom this is appropriate, a very happy and healthy new year. The senator covered the abysmal census rate, and we have to do something. We will suffer for 10 years with less representation and significantly less federal dollars once all of the dust settles, if we do not get our numbers up. So if there are people you know who are, you know, left the city to stay with their in-laws somewhere that has a backyard so the kids could go outside, they can go online and they can register their census at their Manhattan address, and we need that desperately. So if you know anybody who's taken off, we had fun marching around the Lower East Side with an incredible drumming corps to drum up interest in the census, but we are still lagging. I intend to vote early. My wife and I made that decision that we wanted to make certain that our votes were in on election night. We're concerned about someone claiming that they've won when the votes have not been counted, and attempts to stop the vote. I still have PTSD from Florida in 2000. So we don't want bully boys going around trying to stop the vote. There was an attempt to harass people early voting in Virginia. So we want to make certain that everyone here has the opportunity and that every vote, regardless of how it is cast, is in fact counted. If you get your early ballot and you get concerned about the post office, you will be able to take it to an early voting or on election day to turn it in. That will be another opportunity. And you can, I've talked to the Board of Elections, if it is an absentee ballot, it has to have the envelope with the signature and the date. You can turn in your elderly neighbor's ballot for him or her. I just finished a 7.5-hour higher ed hearing on financial aid. Everything is facing a 20% withholding. They're not calling it a cut because they're hoping they can backfill that 20% for tuition assistance, for various opportunity programs, EOP, HEOP. Those are programs that help educationally and economically disadvantaged young people to go to college. And provide additional services like mentoring, tutoring, and counseling. And those students actually graduate college at the same or higher rate than students who have been accepted based on their academic achievement. So those programs are incredibly successful. They're very small, but if we want to see students, the number one reason students don't graduate is economics. So their financial hardship. So if we want to see students retained, persist, and succeed using those strategies, costs a little more money, but in the end, students graduate closer to on time, So they get to work sooner, and our tax dollars are actually best spent because the students actually graduate. So expanding those support services, those wraparound services, are incredibly cost efficient. We're working on some environmental issues. I have a new bill that would require existing and any new wind turbines to have one rotor painted black. It has been demonstrated that that reduces bird strikes by 70%. And this has been a terrible year in the West for migrations. Birds are dropping out of the sky from smoke inhalation. So whatever we can do to protect birds is important. And with that, I have a lead ammo ban on state land because raptors will frequently find lead pellets. And so they're a protected, endangered species, raptors and bald eagles, and they are dying from lead poisoning. So they're not getting shot directly because that's a ban, but they are scavenging and they're dying from lead poisoning. So we wanted it out of our gas, we wanted it out of our paint, but it's state lands, we allow lead ammunition to be used. Now everybody is obviously very deeply concerned about the future of the Supreme Court. New York's women will be protected in the event that Roe v. Wade at some point is overturned, because we have passed the Reproductive Health Act, which guarantees that right in New York State. But 38 states, I think it's 38 at this point, have an automatic trigger that a constitutional right for the first time would be overturned and eliminated. It would be the first and only time that a right would be taken away from Americans, and that right, it will still be protected in New York, but it is quite horrifying what we are potentially faced with on environmental protection, endangered species, clean air, clean water. So I would just say to everybody, vote. And if you have extra time and you are interested, there are a myriad of ways in which you can participate in the electoral system. And I would urge people who are terrified to take a little bit of your time in the coming weeks to reach out to your fellow Americans and work to see that New York is, and the rest of the world is protected. So the CDC has made it clear, forget about vaccines, masks are the #1 way that you can stay safe. I'm really proud of New Yorkers. I walk around and I see great compliance. I drove incidentally through the edge of Pennsylvania, didn't open the windows and never stopped because nobody was wearing a mask. And I drove back into New York and everyone was wearing a mask, people walking their dogs or whatever. And I felt so grateful to be a New Yorker. Thank you one and all. Stay safe, fill out your census and vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblymember. Are there any questions? All right, seeing none, I'm going to go to Senator Brad Hoylman.
Hi, very nice to see everyone. Thank you for having me tonight. I hope everyone's doing well, all things considered, given the last week and the last 6 months. Wanted to acknowledge our first ever community board budgeting selections. And thanks to Community Board 3, where we funneled our capital dollars through the approvals process from local community boards for the first time, kind of a take on participatory budgeting that's used of course, by city council members, we decided to leverage our community boards to see if we could get some good ideas for our capital dollars. And I'm proud to say that as you requested from Community Board 3, that the funds of $250,000 be used for Campos Plaza Community Center. We have awarded that. And we also are allocating an additional amount for a total of $550,000 to complete that project for improvements, which of course we all know is home to continuous youth and family programs. So thank you to the board for your time and care, engaging with Caroline Wexelbaum, who headed up our whole CBB, we call it CBB, process. And I just want to give a big shout out to her because she's been managing a lot of different agencies as we ascertain the viability of different projects. So thank you again, and you can read more about it on our board report. Secondly, wanted to follow up on my colleague, Assembly Member Glick, and share both her concern and gratitude. First, gratitude for the Assembly Member for passing the Reproductive Health Act, which is going to protect New York women from any externalities, I'll phrase it as such, with a new Supreme Court appointment. And secondly, wanted to acknowledge, of course, the passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I organized a letter along with 23 of my Senate colleagues demanding that the US Senate leader, Mitch McConnell, wait until the winner of the upcoming presidential election names a nominee before holding any confirmation proceedings. Obviously, we're the state Senate, not the United States Senate, but I figure any voice and every voice needs to be heard at this point in time. Third, wanted to thank the organizers, CEC1, LES Ready, Lois Saida, for that great march that we all took along with Councilmember Rivera and Assembly members Yuli New, Harvey Epstein, and Gail Brewer, and our controller and the public advocate, to demand that we have investments in our public schools so they can reopen safely. It's about revenue. And if we're not getting it from the federal government, we're gonna have to come up with it ourselves, whether it's through bills that Senators Cavanaugh and Yuli New and Harvey Epstein are proposing, or the pied-à-terre tax that Assemblymember Glick and I have proposed that taxes luxury second and third apartments worth $5 million or more. Most of those who own these second and third apartments at that rate aren't paying their fair share, in our opinion, because they're not paying New York City income tax. We hope to change that. And then finally, I want to mention some new legislation that I introduced, a bill called the Fighting Underground Racing in Our Streets Act, which stands for FURIOUS. And yes, it took us a very long time to figure out that acronym. And it would authorize New York City to operate speed cameras, basically overnight and on weekends in areas where there have been hot spots for illegal speed racing. Part of the bill's component is to listen to community boards to raise the red flag, or the checkered flag, if you will, about speed racing in their neighborhoods. And it comes on the heels, or the wheels, of continued complaints from residents all over the city about drag racing. The complaints are basically 5 times what they were just a year ago. And it's because thrill seekers and just, complete asses are taking advantage of empty streets to drag race and to speed race and to endanger the lives of motorists, pedestrians, cyclists, and keeping us up all night. I don't know about you, but I hear it at all hours of the night. You can read an op-ed that I wrote. Neely Rozick from Queens and Brian Cavanaugh's former chief of staff is the sponsor in the assembly. I look forward to passing that legislation. Thank you, everyone. Like Deborah said, wear your mask, stay safe, vote, and fill out the census.
Thank you, Senator. I want to make a joke about drag race puns, but I won't.
I know, you know, drag racing has a lot of possibilities in the pun area.
We can all learn something from RuPaul.
Yep.
Alicia, you had your hand up for a moment. Did you want to make a comment? You good? All right, so we're going to go.
I just wanted to say thank you to the senator as well. Thank you, Senator Hoyman, because I know that Compost Plaza is in desperate need of that money for the renovations. I mean, I grew up going to that center, and a lot of the kids in the neighborhood still, you know, they look forward to going there after school and making sure they have a safe place to play and everything. So thank you so very much.
We're thrilled to send our tax dollars, our money, to that effort.
We have another question from Olympia Kazi. Olympia?
Thank you. So as Luke said, and Brad, I want to thank you all because indeed you all came very strongly in our march. I want to make sure that everybody understands this march was organized by 4 mothers in the district, and the reason for which, and it was supported from all the incredible local organizations. And it is important that this is understood by everybody because the media narrative right now is that we, the parents, just want to send our kids to school and it's the lazy teachers or it is this and that. The reality is the conditions right now are truly unsafe and dangerous, and kids are put in harm's way, especially the neediest kids in our district that need to be in school. And this is completely inappropriate. So what I wanted to mention is that, especially at the state, the way in which you can continue to support us is also in the short term. Governor Cuomo is the most problematic person. We know the inadequacies and incapacities of our mayor and our chancellor, but the governor is the one who's right now just released the funds he was withholding up till September, but the funding for October, he still is threatening of withholding. And this is just funding we would normally need to operate if a pandemic was not there. So for the pandemic, we would need additional funds. So the whole meaning of that march that we did was that we need more funding in order for the future of New York and all of New Yorkers today to be safe. And so please fight for us for existing funding. And in terms of taxing the rich, yes, like many others said, for the first time, I envied New Jersey because they had the guts to do the right thing, and also consider Senator Jackson's bill because funding for public education has been inadequate for years. And any budget cut that may happen now, it will take years for us to reverse. And this is, we all know it's 80% people of color in our public schools. So this is a huge issue of equity and fairness for our city. So thank you for coming, but please keep doing the fight because we need you, especially at the state level.
Thank you, Olympia. Just to respond, I couldn't have said it better myself. I think you said it all. I know all of my colleagues have different proposals for revenue raisers. We really have to make some hard decisions. But at the end of the day, it's not going to be so hard because we're talking about protecting the most vulnerable, innocent children, the foundation of our democracy, which is public education. So thank you. Thank you, Olympia, for all your work.
Thank you, Senator. That's the last question we have for you. Thank you. Borough President Gail Brewer, I see that you're on. Do you want to speak now or would you rather keep listening in? Gail? We can't hear you. Yeah, I'm asking you, Gail, do you want to talk now or do you want to keep listening in to the other reports? Gail, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Oh, you cut out again.
Michael, I'm going to compute with this one.
Okay, you're going to switch computers? I think we lost her. I think she's switching computers. So we're going to go to Assemblyman Harvey Epstein.
Thank you, and I'll be quick so when Gail gets back on, we can go right to her. I also just want to really wish everyone, for those who are celebrating, Happy New Year. For folks who don't know, the week between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is really a week of reflection and atonement, and so, you know, it's been a tough weekend and a tough 6 months, but you know, hopefully as we move into a new year in 5781, we will maybe we'll reflect on the bad past year and look forward to doing more. The Ecology Center is clearly a critical part of our neighborhood, and that the board has been really important and strong about this, and we continue to. The loss of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, you know, it's hard to, you know, to fathom what our Supreme Court will look like with the president filling that seat, but it's something we're going to have to manage and deal with, you know, post November. So it's something which is going to be in for the ride. SLA issues. There's been an ongoing problem in our neighborhood. People know, obviously, of two sides. One is, everyone's out in the street. There's more noise, and the flip is local businesses being shut down by the state liquor authority. It's a concern that we have, and I think, really during this pandemic, and businesses are struggling. We've seen continuous businesses shutting down every day. Whether it's my dry cleaners or places like Odessa, it's just tough. So I think what we can do is support as businesses as much as possible. I understand that we want them to follow the rules, and I want them to follow the rules, but at the same time, we have to balance losing small businesses that really hire local people. So it's a tough balance, and I know the community board has experienced that. I know Alex has sat through more LA committee meetings than anyone I've met in my life, and so she's fabulous. But at the same time, we can't lose our local businesses, and I think we need to do a better job. Olympia, thanks for the work on the rally, and for people like you. We had a fabulous turnout of hundreds of families coming out to talk about the safety in our schools, and it's clear, on the day that we were having our rally, that the mayor realized that he wasn't ready to open the schools on the 21st, and I'm not clear we're ready for next Monday either. I've been to numerous classrooms in the district where windows don't open, or they're shielding windows shut. The teachers are already complaining that it's too cold in the classroom with the windows open. We're gonna have kids in winter coats sitting in classrooms with, I'm not sure the plan we have in place right now is gonna work. I'm pretty clear it's not going to, and then we're gonna be in a position that we can't plan further ahead. And we had a plan that we were like, okay, we'll be remote until January and focus on high needs kids and kids with special needs or kids with IEPs. We could have had a plan, but this pushed back a week and realized our problems we're having. It's just gonna make it worse and worse. So, I hope that we figure out a better plan, and it isn't the one the mayor's proposing and reopening next week, but if it is, we'll see how this plays out. I think less than the 700,000 kids who are scheduled to go in are gonna go in, because I just don't think people feel like it's safe. Talking to a teacher today, and they had 2 kids come in for pre-K. So we have all this opening in a pre-K in a school, and 2 kids are showing up. So I think we have to be smart about it and use our resources well. And I'm not clear we are, where we could really focus on kids with special needs and high needs and English language learners, and giving the individual attention that's necessary to the population. So a couple of weeks ago, the housing agency, HCR, proposed rules around major capital improvements last year with the leadership of, Assembly Member Glick and Senator Cavanaugh and Hoylman. We were able to pass the most sweeping housing legislation, and it limited major capital improvements. The housing agency then proposed regulations or policies, that aren't in compliance with the legislation that we passed. So I know I testified and I had signed on from about a dozen of my colleagues saying that they need to withdraw what they proposed. I know Senator Cavanaugh and Hoylman are with me. They need to comply with the laws we passed, and they're not, and that's going to have potentially negative impact on many, many tenants across the city and across the state. I don't want to, go over the issues that were already raised. I'll just have one more point of we're having a criminal justice town hall on September 30th. So people can sign up with our newsletters in the chat. People can look at it. Aura's here. You can talk to her about it. We made some important criminal justice reforms, and then we rolled back on some bail, which I think was deeply problematic. But what we've seen over the last couple of weeks is that we're incarcerating more people instead of less because of the rollback on bail. So we're putting more people at risk of COVID, and these are people who are being arrested for nonviolent offenses. We need to have substantive criminal justice reform, and there are lots of bills that we've been talking about, whether it's solitary confinement, and ensuring that people who are aging in prison get released because they have low recidivism rates. We're spending billions of dollars on incarcerating people who could be productive members of society. We let them out. The question we keep having to answer for ourselves is, what is the purpose of incarcerating people? Is it as the Corrections Institute says? Is it as the Department of Corrections says, it's for corrections, or it's for punishment? As for corrections, we should look at corrections. We should expand educational programs. We should expand services, drug rehab, and we should, when people are proven that they've corrected their behavior, we should give them a pathway out. We don't do that now, and we need to do it. I'll end on the one point around budget justice, because Olympia raised a really critical thing. Sorry about that. We need billions of dollars. We have 14 revenue bills that all of us are sponsored, whether it's Assemblymember Glick or Senator Wellman or myself, that we're either sponsoring or co-sponsoring. They could bring in billions of dollars to New York State. Just alone with the millionaire's tax, we could bring $5.8 billion, and we could catch up to New Jersey for New York State. So New York City has an additional tax, but for New York State, we could do that. And for people who aren't in the city, we should do that. And for people who are in the city, they'll pay a little more. There's nothing that proves that people leave New York City. There's no documents that say we raise taxes to leave, because we have higher taxes now than New Jersey, and they haven't gone there yet. So they're just trying to catch up to us, and they're still not moving to Jersey. So New York is where people want to be. We can do this. We can do millionaire tax. We can do mezzanine debt tax. We can do pay-to-pay tax. There's so many things that don't impact 99% of us that could result in not cutting 20% of our school aid in October or November. We've already talked about CUNY. Deborah Glick and I were on a hearing for hours today. We heard from person to person about class sizes that have tripled and doubled. CUNY faculty have been laid off, cuts across the board. And this is because we are not raising revenue. Revenue's got to be the answer. I would encourage everyone to call the governor today, tell him to raise revenue, sign on to our bills, and then let's get us back into session so we can pass those bills. Thank you.
Thank you, Assembly Member. Are there any questions? Carlin?
Yes. Hi, Harvey. Going back to the criminal justice reforms, all right, it brings back a case. Randy Santos killed 4 men at Chatham Square last year.
Right.
He was bailed out. He was bailed out for a second violent assault. All right. So what guarantees are there that further reforms won't release more violent people out there mistakenly?
Yeah. So the bail reform, we didn't talk about violent offenses. If someone engages in a violent offense, they can be kept on bail. And let's be clear that bail is just a poverty tax. So people who have money, right, even if they engage in violent offenses, can always get released. So basically you're saying if you're poor and you're accused of murder, it's one standard. And if you're really wealthy and you're accused of murder, it's a different standard. So I think we need to have standards that make sense. We shouldn't be based on people's incomes. And the second thing is when people engage in violent offenses, people should be incarcerated. That's unfortunately what the system requires for people. People should, we don't want people to kill anyone, but if they do, that's the criminal justice system for. And so, no, we don't want recidivism. But the kid who's standing on the street corner who's like selling marijuana and gets arrested, or the person who takes a loaf of bread from a store because they need it, or someone who steals an Amazon box Should those people be staying in Rikers Island? I don't think so. We need to get those people released. And we were on a really good path earlier this year. Unfortunately, the bail rollbacks that we instituted in April has put us down a negative path. And it means that more people will be separated from their kids, and more people will become homeless, and more people will lose their jobs because they're being kept in jail. And just because you are let go doesn't mean you don't have to stand trial. You still have to stand trial, and you still can be incarcerated. But at least you're out until the trial, unless you're engaging in a really violent offense. And in situations like you're talking about, people engage in those kind of violent offenses, those people don't get released on bail unless they have money.
Well, okay, I was addressing the part where the bail reform package passed at the state legislature was actually, violent offenders were actually being released without bail. Okay, now I totally agree with the shoplifter, and other low-level non-violent offenses, but we had people committing shootings out in Brooklyn, and they were released.
Those people are not getting released without bail. Those people are not we didn't say murder wasn't a category that was excluded from bail. It just wasn't. Attempted murder.
Thank you, Assembly Member. Borough President Brewer.
Yes,
thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Harvey.
Yeah, sorry about my computer problems. All right, there's a couple of things. Number one, I think in terms of the jail, you've heard some, but there was a meeting today with the city council and the mayor's office, and I hope that they come to the community board also. I think that obviously the issue of environmental impact statement was not addressed according to the court, understandably. So, but the mayor's office feel they can still do outreach and so on and so forth. So we're gonna make sure that there's as much community engagement as possible, and the city's going to appeal, and we see where it goes. They obviously cannot start construction, break ground, but it seems like the city can do everything in between. There were a lot of questions, and if you want more, we can answer that. Second, just some good news is, I don't have a lot of good news this time. I know people are really cheerful. I'm not so good at that. But the Chai Spot, which is in Board 2, it's a restaurant. It's on Mott Street. And they were one of the winners of our charming outdoor dining contest. And just to say how important these kinds of supports are, this is a wonderful chai restaurant owned by a Pakistani woman. She also sells wonderful crafts. You may know it. But what is interesting is just before she was announced as a winner, she was planning to close the restaurant. And the only thing that kept her going was the fact that customers showed up after the announcement. Her owner is fabulous. He has cut the rent. So it's good news in terms of a wonderful owner, a wonderful restaurant, a great store, but you can see the margin that people are operating on. And I have to say, I was almost crying knowing that a small act kept them open, but it is hard, as you know. The schools, we are all working. Until recently, the city had not spent the money that we allocated a year ago, and billions and millions of dollars for the schools. So they finally, after a New York Post story, agreed to spend the money. It's all for technology. It's all for the devices that are in such demand. So as we speak, our office is working with almost all 400 schools in Manhattan, trying to get the devices, figure out the Chromebook issue. It's a nightmare, to be honest with you. And now, of course, are they going to spend the money that was allocated this year for technology? Meanwhile, schools are struggling just to get those devices. On Tuesday, which of course is the 29th, the next opening day, we're going to be at almost every school in Manhattan. We have hundreds and hundreds of volunteers. Everybody's welcome. You can sign up on our website, giving out information about the census, as you can imagine, and certainly all the other PPE and what's going on information. I think that it's it's an important time to be supportive of the parents. The precinct barricades letter, which basically said unleash the streets that are closed at the precincts. It's got a lot of discussion from reporters asking the mayor about it. Some have retreated, some have not. So I just want to let you know we have not stopped working on that. I had a meeting today with all of the bids and community chambers of commerce and so on in the borough of Manhattan. And I would say that they are frustrated is the issue that I hope that you will look at. You are very supportive of your small businesses in Community Board 3. It's everything from what kind of heater am I supposed to use? And if I have to have this kind of heater, what does it involve? The fire department says one thing. Con Ed is going to work with me or not on my electric heater. Are there enough heaters for everybody? What's the date that we have to end our indoor? Is it really outdoor? Is it really the 31st? Are you going to extend it? Is it 25% or maybe 50%? And there are hundreds more issues. We did a letter on September 17th about small business. I hope you got a copy. If not, let us know. And we are going to do another letter listing all of these issues that small businesses are concerned with. The list is very, very long. Seniors, we, as you know, focused on them getting food during the entire pandemic. We are continuing with the opportunity from the top of Manhattan to the bottom of Manhattan until the end of this month with Fresh Direct, making sure that the NYCHA seniors get food. My understanding is that food program, and Susan may know this, is going to switch over to DFTA. And I hope that works, but I think that's something that should be very, very closely monitored because the seniors need the food. The senior centers are not open. When are they going to open? And all the issues of seniors and their existence, I think, is something to pay a lot of attention in terms of your board. 70 Mulberry Street, we're paying a lot of attention to it. I know there's a lot of discussions about preservation, building new, not, and we're going to have a stakeholders meeting and you're very involved with that and I appreciate it. The census, it just is like a challenge every minute. So we did mail with the League of Women Voters 35,000 postcards to those who came as a list public from the Board of Elections. The Board of Elections states these are the people who requested an absentee ballot in other parts, not New York City, although they are New York City, Manhattan residents. It's gotten a lot of positive response. We'll see how many really say, uh-oh, I need to fill out a local, not my temporary residence. I need to fill it out again with my Manhattan residents. We also sent, as I might have mentioned to you, 280,000 postcards to underrepresented census tracts. We also gave up money from the governor to individual groups working, many of them in Chinatown. And we just got a list from the US Census of buildings that are not getting entrance to. And we will go over and figure out which is what community board. We have 8 days to go. And so these buildings absolutely need access. I know there are some in Board 3. So those are some of the issues that we're working on. And I thank you very much for all your efforts you are making in your community. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Gail. We've got a couple of hands raised for you. We'll start with Trevor Holland.
Hi, Gail. Thank you for everything you do. I just wanted to mention something and try and be as brief as possible, considering the sessions can be quite long. But recently, the appellate court ruled against your case and the city council's case. So my first question is to you is, when are you going to appeal? And if you're not, what's the next step? What the appellate court has said is that petitioners could have taken steps to amend the zoning resolution. Let me just finish that. Petitioners could have taken steps to amend the zoning resolution to prohibit buildings of this scale or sought to change the zoning classification of the Two Bridges neighborhood. And that's exactly what the community board has partnered with community groups to do. So those are my two questions.
Okay. I probably need to have we're definitely going to appeal, but I want to get the time frame for you. And we'll certainly have lots of discussions about the zoning resolution because I certainly understand your point. So to be continued, but 100% understanding. Thank you very much, Trevor. And I want to thank you for your Zoom or your question about the party boats because now I'm stuck with that problem every night. So thank you, Trevor.
Carlin Chan.
Yes, good evening, Gail. I have a question.
Carlin.
About the 70 Mulberry Street stakeholders meeting. Is that open to the public? And if not, why?
I think it will. I will find out. Usually they, maybe not to be on the task force, but certainly because I know the community board is represented. But let me find out. I don't know the answer to your question. I'll find out.
Thank you.
But the community board is represented. Okay.
Thank you, Gail. Are there any other questions? All right. Thank you again, Gail. All right. So we are going to go to our representatives now from elected offices. I'm assuming there's no other elected officials with us. If so, raise your hand, let me know. Otherwise, we're going to start with Shivani from Yulene's office.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. So I will make it quick. One of our updates is that last week, Yulene hosted an education webinar with a school in Taiwan who was doing a full semester in person because of how they were able to handle their COVID response. It's fully safe, so she hosted that to learn and have a Q&A about how we can bring that into our schools. She then released a statement on schools reopening and the need for the city to work with teachers and families and hear out what they need and what is important for them moving forward. So that's something she's very committed to hearing everyone out and seeing what we can do to make sure that it is the safest possible. So that's a big thing that we've been talking about in our office. She also spoke at a CUNY roundtable earlier in the month to discuss the need for CUNY funding. I mean, amid the pandemic and budget cuts and all of that, CUNY really needs funding, especially given the fact that nearly 80% of CUNY students are people of color, and removing that resource from an already underserved community would be truly devastating. So that's something she's been advocating for as well. She also hosted a press conference along with Senator Brian Cavanaugh and council members Keith Powers and Brad Lander to discuss their small business relief bill. She believes that it is urgent for legislation to be passed to support our small businesses as the economic devastation of this pandemic continue. Finally, she spoke also at a press conference to call for emergency legislative session. There's been a lot of great legislation put forward that really works to support our community, but none of that can be passed if the legislature is not in session. So that is something she's been very vocal about. And then just finally, as per usual, we're still doing PPE distributions. That's like our main focus when we're in office. So if you know of anyone who needs PPE, any groups, any events that you'd like us to distribute at, please feel free to reach out. I'll put my contact in the little box. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Shivani. Are there any questions? Just a reminder, folks, the questions at this point in the meeting for elected officials and their representatives are only for community board members. We unfortunately do not allow members of the public to ask questions, just community board members from this point forward. I don't see any hands raised from community board members. So we're going to go to Victor from Carolyn Maloney's office. Victor, you there? All right, I guess not. So we're going to go to Ling Shay from...
Hello?
Yes. Oh, Victor?
Yes.
Yes.
So who exactly is appealing the ruling for the jail?
I'm sorry.
This is the wrong Victor, Michael. It's the wrong Victor.
Okay, I don't know who moved him over. I'm sorry, Victor. Victor Montanez, are you on? Okay, so we're going to go to Ling Shay from Nubia Velasquez's office.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here, on behalf of Congresswoman Nydia Velasquez. Well, first thing I'm gonna say is, like repeated many times, is the census. The Congresswoman hosted a census Zoom town hall last week, where some of you guys were probably there. So as the current rate and as projected by the current statistics that as we know it, New York stands to lose perhaps 1 to 2 congressional seats. and then also because of COVID-19, a lot of people have moved out of the city, but we know a lot of people will move back. So if you know anybody who's who's outside the city at the moment, but will move back later on, please help spread the message. Those people should fill out the census for New York, because they're probably in their second home, but they're going to come back to New York later. Right now the House of Representatives has passed the HEROES Act, which contains which contains funding for rental assistance, for example, $100 billion, and then these assistance would would cover public housing and the Section 8 residents, which it's far, we cannot call it adequate, but it's far more adequate than the bills that's floated around by Senate Republicans, and more adequate than the CDC Eviction Moratorium, which doesn't cover a lot. And then, as we know it currently, the House bill is not going anywhere with the current Senate, and it's all depending on the November election, and it's all it's an all-out effort to make sure that we take back the Senate, so we
Lynn, if you can wrap up, please, Lynn.
I'm sorry.
If you can wrap up.
Sorry. And then lastly, the Congresswoman is working on a bill to eliminate voter suppression in some of the key swing states. And that's update. Thanks.
All right, thank you. All right, Isabel from Carlina Rivera's office.
Hi everyone, good evening. I will keep my updates quick. I know that we have been talking about the census for a very long time, but I also know that there are many bicycle lovers and cyclists on this call. So I wanted to flag for you a Cyclist for the Census event this Saturday with Councilmember Chin and a few other local organizations. If you're interested in attending or volunteering, I will post that in the chat. And a few legislative updates. Carlina held a hearing yesterday regarding the COVID response in New York City jails with the Committee on Criminal Justice. And she will also be holding a hearing shortly about the test and trace program in New York City. And finally, as others have mentioned, Carlina joined the March for Safe Schools recently, and if you or anyone you know is experiencing difficulties, as I know many people are with the schools, with remote learning, please don't hesitate to reach out to our office if you are in need of resources or information. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Isabel. Mary, oh, sorry, we have a question from Olympia. Go ahead, Olympia.
It's a quick question, more like a reminder. Basically, I was stopped in the street by New York One yesterday, and they were doing a reportage about Chara Silver Hill. So the situation, as you know, has further deteriorated. Now there is a huge hole in the sidewalk. There is constant glass moving from the wind, etc. In 3 weeks, we have the anniversary of de Blasio's promise to buy it back. So we're counting on you, whatever extra pressure you can put, because this is both a safety issue and, a legacy issue and a community issue. Thank you.
Can I briefly respond?
Of course, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Olympia. I just wanted to let you know we followed up about the hole. DOT has reported to us that they would be covering it temporarily, immediately, and then long-term as well. So if that continues, the hole, please let us know. And just thank you so much for bringing it up. We continue to put as much pressure as we can on the mayor's office and LPC. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Isabel. Alicia?
Okay.
Yes. Hi. Thank you, Isabel. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. So I just have a really quick question. If you could ask our Councilwoman Rivera, please ask her vouchers that are 90 days. I don't know what the extensions are being permissible for them, but currently right now they're giving these 90-day vouchers from the shelter system to find apartments, which at this time is not feasible for many of them during this pandemic. So I'd like to see what we could do to help the homeless a little better with those vouchers that they're giving out. It is very restricted as to how they're going to find housing in 90 days with the vouchers, and they expire within the time. Once they release them, that's it. They got 90 days, and then it's, I don't know. So if there's any way that we can support them with an extension or even listings or whatever, I don't know what we can do, but please ask our councilwoman to look into that.
We'll follow. Thank you so much, Alicia.
Thank you, Isabel. Marion from Councilmember Chin's office, are you on?
Hi, I'm Harmony. I'll be speaking for Marion.
Awesome. Go ahead, Harmony.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm just going to provide you with some updates from our team. So yesterday, Councilmember Chin chaired a council hearing on senior center reopening, and we listened as senior center providers share their concerns with the recently released senior center concept paper, especially around the lack of transparency on the future of senior centers, their capacity to serve food, how to engage isolated seniors, and what funding is being secured to best position them to do their work. Our office has been working with providers to fight for the necessary guidance and resources to continue serving and advocating for older New Yorkers as the pandemic continues. As we approach the last week of the 2020 census outreach, our office is also partnering with Asian American Federation, CPC, AFB, and Councilmember Rivera's office to host a census caravan this Saturday from 11 to 2 p.m. We'll be giving out free 1-month city bike vouchers to volunteers or those who fill out the census. If you're interested in signing up to be a part of the caravan, I'll drop a link in the chat box. Over the past few weeks, we've also organized census events with Immigrant Social Services, the Chinese Progressive Association, Hamilton Madison House, and more. We hope to do more to maximize participation. On the topic of school reopening, we have been hearing your concerns, which is why our office has been working with schools and city agencies on open space applications for learning, following up on ventilation concerns, and expediting FDNY inspections of learning labs. We've also been advocating for schools to receive the necessary guidance from DOE to reopen safely. Lastly, the Community First Food Pantry, a partnership between our office and the local nonprofit UA3, continues to grow in size, and we're always looking for more volunteers to help us in our efforts. And I'll send the link to sign up in the chat box below.
Thank you, Harmony. Any questions? All right, last call for the Public Advocate's office or the Mayor's office. If anybody's on, if you can raise your hand. All right, and that concludes our report from elected officials, and I'm going to hand it over to Michelle Cooper-Smith for roll call and voting on the June minutes.
Thanks, Michael. David Adams.
June or July?
I believe it's June.
July.
July, sorry. The agenda says
July. But I think I voted on the June already. Okay, yes, I'm here.
Thanks. You're on Altman.
Yes.
Jesse Beck.
Yes.
Dominic Berg. Dominic Berg. Okay. Lee Berman.
Yes.
Thank you. Carlin Chan.
Yes.
Jonathan Chu.
Yes.
David Crane.
That doesn't work. Yes.
Thank you. Felicia Cruikshank.
Here.
Yes. Thank you, Felicia. Eric Diaz.
Yes.
Alistair Economakis.
Yes. Thank you.
Shirley Fennessy. Okay. Ryan Gillum.
Yes.
Deborah Glass.
Yes.
Andrea Gordillo.
Yes.
Herman Hewitt. Herman Hewitt. Herman, you're on mute. Oh, there you go. Thank you. Trevor Holland.
Yes.
Linda Jones.
Yes.
Valentina Jones.
Yes.
Tatiana Jorio.
Yes.
Lisa Kaplan.
Yes.
Olympia Kazi.
Yes.
Joseph Kearns.
Yes.
Michelle Coopersmith. Yes. May Lee.
Yes.
Thank you. Wendy Lee.
Yes.
Alicia Lewis Coleman.
Yes.
David Louie. Ellen Liu.
Yes.
Michael Marino.
Yes.
Alex Militano.
Yes.
Michael Perlis.
Yes.
Tariq Ramos.
Yes.
Paul Rangel.
Yes.
Carolyn Ratcliffe. Carolyn Ratcliffe, you're on mute.
Yes.
Thank you. Damaris Reyes.
Yes.
Richard Ropiak.
Yes.
Thank you. Thomas Rosa.
Yes.
Robin Chattel.
Yes.
Heidi Schmidt.
Yes.
Larissa Scheinberg.
Yes.
Clint Smeltzer.
Yes.
Anisha Stephen.
Yes.
Sandra Struther.
Yes.
Josephine Velez.
Yes.
Troy Velez.
Yes.
Rodney Washington.
Yes.
Kathleen Webster.
Yes.
Jackie Wong.
Yes.
Ricky Wong.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle, and thank you, Michael. So, a few things. I want to just again thank everyone for attending tonight. If you're just tuning in, thank you so much for coming out. And I want to wish a happy new year to our Jewish neighbors and those observing the high holy days. I also want to thank our elected officials for their continued support and our community leaders for their fearless fight for saving our community and keeping us well grounded in this neighborhood. As a reminder, our schools in District 1 are still providing free meals for the public. If you come to the school from 7:30 in the morning to 1:30 in the afternoon, you can still get 3 meals at one of the local schools that are open. After those schools are closed, once the children arrive at school next week, I believe Friday is the last day for the 7:30 to 1:30 set food distribution. After that, it will be from 3 to 5 p.m. and there will be only 3 schools in the district that will be serving in those hubs. So we will keep you posted. I'll probably get some information directly once I get the information from my supervisor. Okay. The Board of Elections is hiring poll workers. So please, if you are interested in the electoral process and you think that you have a little stamina to stay up for 14 to 15 hours and work the polls on election day, it would be great to have you call in the Board of Elections and register yourself to be a poll worker. Don't just be, don't sit on the sidelines, work that day if you wish to do something, observant. And also vote, please vote. Okay. We're going to be convening the NYCHA Section 8 Subcommittee on 10/21. If you are a full board member and you wish to join that subcommittee, please email me as soon as possible and let me know. My email address is cv3chair@gmail.com. Please let me know, especially for the new members that haven't had an opportunity to really check it out. I encourage everyone that's interested, come check it out. It's on Zoom. You don't have to leave your house. So just tune in, and that's again on October the 21st. Okay, so we know we have elections coming up. We are approaching our community board elections for our executive committee. And so we're still in the midst of COVID, right? So we're still in the pandemic. So because of the pandemic, we are in need to change things up a little bit, the way we operate, the way we do our election. We still have a task force for the bylaws, and we are going to, because we never dissolved the last one. The last one was, we had a minor clarification back in January. And so we still have that bylaws task force, which is comprised of the executive committee. And so we need them to make a change, a little amendment to the bylaws for us to vote electronically. So that is what I needed to tell you tonight. Also, Linda is going to share with you more about the nominating committee. That's it. I think that's all for me. Let me just double check. Oh, and also one last thing, I'm sorry. I would like to remind everyone, please continue to show up for your committee meetings. We're still on Zoom, and you can even call on your cell phone. Please show up, committee members, show up to your committee meetings. If you're unable to show up to your committee meetings and you feel like you are going through like work hardship or something in your family, please just contact your committee chairperson so they're aware that you will not be in attendance and they're not constantly wondering where you are. Okay, thank you so much, and I wish you all well. I'm going to turn it over to our district manager for her report. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Alicia. First, a few brief announcements. We have received a few complaints about the speaker form. We appreciate getting the complaints, so we know there's a problem, and we have already changed it so it will be easier to submit. Wanted to give some information regarding Charis. As people know, the Department of Buildings has not been incredibly responsive in the way they've been inspecting. There have been a lot of complaints about people obtaining access to the roof. So at my last district service cabinet meeting, we were not able to get any further response from DOB, but the fire department has agreed to inspect the roof and see if there's a way they can prevent access to the roof. So I will keep you updated on that. I want to let people know there's been a trend recently for cars being broken into. Please be very careful not to leave anything in sight in the cars. We've had continuing to have many complaints COVID-related issues. One is people you are seeing on the street, some of whom are homeless, some of whom were formerly in programs for substance abuse or other services that they were receiving. There are other issues that are impacted by COVID are a lot less sanitation pickups. We've seen huge piles of garbage, particularly right next to restaurants, which is totally budget related. There's a lot less parks maintenance. I think Parks has announced that there are 30% short on their staff because of people being out ill, along with having budget related issues. And another complaint we're hearing a lot of, and which is one of the public session speakers spoke on, is loud parties. People are not going to bars, so they're using roofs or backyards or apartments. And the only way we can deal with this is by working with the precinct. So I'm hoping that that will be successful. And I also want to go back to Brad Hoylman's announcement about Compost Plaza. We've been trying to get improvements or reconstruction there for so many years. It's incredibly a big deal that he not only allocated the funding, but also allocated other funding, so the complete reconstruction will be done. And I particularly want to thank Caroline and his office. It was a tremendous amount of work to deal with the bureaucracy between NYCHA and the state. So I want to thank her for her help on that. I've been asked to explain how items get on the agenda. So I will give a short report on that. And for your reference, this is on our website under member resources and office operations. First, we get most of our items from city agencies, such as mandated notifications, such as ULURPs or SLA notifications, or city agencies showing us plans, such as park redesigns. Often a community board resolution is required, and this fulfills the role of the community having a voice in the decision-making. There are many times informational items from local nonprofits, such as when we got our first marijuana dispensary or new community services or programming. The agencies will generally contact the office, and then we confer with the committee chair. Other items are referred to the office, or by the office to the committee because of service delivery problems that indicate a systemic problem that needs to be accounted for or needs a community board resolution. One example of this in the past was the K2 drug problem. The resolution asked for a policy change that was then all 12 boards voted on this same issue. Another example was with the Houston Street reconstruction, when that was 3 years overdue, and there was a vote on that from the committee, which got attention from the mayor's office and really made a difference. Sometimes board members will have a proposal to ask the board for support, such as for traffic improvements or residents who form a friends of group, maybe for a park. We may have local organizations such as Community Education Council coming to the board for support. All the items sent to the office, other those from city agencies, are first discussed with committee chairs so that we have decisions finalized before the executive committee. And sometimes items are deferred until a later date because the agenda is full with time-sensitive items. And also it should be noted that some items may not be agenda items, such as service delivery issues that are really enforcement, or something that's not within the jurisdiction, such as private civil matters. So if there's any people still have questions about that, please feel free to contact me, shoot me an email. If we want to, if necessary, we can also set up a time to talk. And in October, you'll notice, or when you get the October agenda, you will see that we're voting on budget priorities that will be for the fiscal year 22. That will be starting next July. And we'll talk about them in every committee, but just to give a brief overview, we will vote on 25 expense items and 40 capital items. Expense items are items such as programs, staff salaries, supplies, small equipment. Capital budget items are physical improvements to infrastructure such as sewers, roads, buildings, land acquisition, major park improvements, and major equipment like trucks. In September, the community boards consult with the agencies that deliver these services to get information to research all of these. And then we will submit, each committee will vote on priorities for their committee. and they will be collated for the full board, and there will be a ranked list voted on at the full board. And I just want to mention, a lot of people find this confusing with the city council participatory budgeting. This is very different. The city council participatory budgeting is taking a bucket of money from the city council that each council member has and deciding on how that money will be spent for the community, as opposed to the priorities, which are saying how each agency will spend money on their budget lines within that agency for our community. Happy to answer any questions. Again, if people want to shoot me an email, I'm happy to go over it with anyone. And if there's no questions, that's it.
We do have a question.
Okay, from Sandra.
Yes, Sandra. Sandra, go ahead, unmute yourself.
No, actually, my question is for you, Alicia. I'm sorry. Who's going to be chairing the Nitrous Section 8 committee?
Currently, it's Jackie and myself.
Oh, okay. All right. You'll be sharing the position. Great. That's great. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Susan. Okay, next I'm asking, and I'm sorry, I do apologize. We did not have the nominating committee here, but instead of exec, we're going to ask that Linda. Linda, are you there?
I am here.
Okay, Linda, give a report.
Right. So essentially, this meeting kicks off the season of nominations for our community board. We will be voting in November. I will be sending out an email very shortly to remind everyone in the community board that they may nominate someone for any one of the executive offices, or one or more. They can nominate themselves, or they can nominate another person. And I'll let you know the rules for all that. The nominating committee it begins meeting now, and we will be working on the input we get from everybody about who is suitable for the offices. And we'll be reporting back at our next meeting with, well, I'm not sure if we'll have candidates yet. Maybe we will. Can't remember. David is out there. He'll remind me. But that's how it goes, and we vote in November. And the amendment that the executive committee or the task force, the bylaws task force is working on relates to our permission to do something other than vote by a paper ballot. And we have not chosen the mechanism yet. That covers it.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Next we have Parks and Recreation, Waterfront, and Resiliency.
I don't know what to do.
We moved you up, Trevor.
Yeah,
We moved you up.
I'm usually number 9 at 9:30 and trying to be brief. But I'm going to be brief also at this time. We did not have any resolutions, although we did have a very long meeting about the entire waterfront in CB3. The good news is that most of it is funded and is under or will go under construction to protect our coastline. The two issues that we still need to talk about, and it is on the agenda for next month, is the Ecology Center's compost yard and the Brooklyn Bridge Esplanade, which is not funded. For committee members, I think this will slow down a bit since we covered a large portion of ESCR related items over the past few months, including the marathon discussion about construction, which was needed. But I think going forward, I don't think we're going to have as long a discussion on for ESCR, especially since we've established a community advisory group, or it has been established. The board did not establish that. We will still talk about in some detail the BMCR, or the Brooklyn Montgomery Coastal Resiliency Plan, but the design for that is 75% done, and it's slated to start construction next year. Any questions?
I don't see any hands. No hands. Thank you, Trevor. Health, Seniors, Human Services, May.
Hi. Hello. Okay, so, well, at the last meeting, we discussed district needs, just like many other committees. At our October meeting, like all the other committees, we will be voting and discussing and voting on the budget priorities that relate to our committee. I also wanted to let people know about another agenda item. We will have a presentation from an organization called the Alliance for Positive Change. They actually have been in this community a long time. Their former name was Lower East Side Harm Reduction Center, which many of you may be familiar with. They provide services to those who are recovering or need to recover from substance abuse. So they were at 25 Allen Street. They're moving to 35 East Broadway, which is between Catherine and Market. And so they will be giving a presentation on the new programs and services they will be providing at their new location. So if you're interested in learning more about that, please come to the meeting. Just to make everyone aware, they came to our board 2 times in the past year with request for support on their new location, which we had voted on and approved. But you'll be able to hear more about their programs there. They just opened up in September at the new location. So that's October the 8th. Thank you.
Thank you, May. Okay, next we have SLA.
We received all the stipulations that were filled out as part of resolutions. I have one amendment, which is just to a whereas clause in a resolution for Hakka Cuisine LLC, 11 Division Street. I can't remember what number it is, Michael, in my agenda. But it's not as to anything substantive. It's just a correction as to number of total seats and number of seats per floor in the
What was the
second
name?
I'm sorry?
Is this the right one?
I'm sorry, what'd you say, Michael?
Is this the right one?
Yes, it is. Thank you. So in the second whereas clause, which is the one right at the bottom of the page, so it would be amending the number of total seats from 100 to 94, and with 8 tables and 42 seats on the ground floor, 7 tables and 52 seats in 2 dining rooms on the second floor. And I already typed out the amendment and sent it to Michelle in advance of the meeting. That's it. Does somebody have to second the amendment or move the amendment or?
Just ask if there's any objection.
Yeah.
Any objection?
I don't see any hands.
Thank you, Alicia.
Okay. Thank you, Alex. Okay, next, sorry. Landmarks did not meet, right?
Correct, correct.
Okay, thank you, Linda. And land use?
Hi, good evening. Land use did not have any result in the last meeting, but we had an information session on 70 Mulberry Street, and there were 2 major opinions from that meeting. First is to ask DCAS to provide the details of the engagement process, such as time frame and number of meetings to the public, and also to move forward with a preservation assessment immediately. So I contacted DCAS after the meeting, and DCAS shared with me that there will be at least 9 engagement meetings for stakeholders, and they also agreed to publicize the engagement information once it is confirmed. But they also insist that they would conduct the preservation analysis after the engagement if that's what the community chooses to do. So I'm following up with elected officers to see what we can do with that. I also want to give a brief preview about our October meeting. Land Use is going to review the Grand Street Guild development application, so anyone who is interested in this topic can come to our meeting. And as Alicia mentioned a little bit earlier, we are going to hold NYCHA subcommittee meeting in October. And NYCHA officers will come to our meeting to give us updates on resilience programs and also general services. I understand the preservation trust conversion is really important right now. However, we still have a little bit of time. So we are going to put it on the meeting after October. That's all for me.
Thank you. Thank you, Jackie. Transportation?
Alicia, there's a couple of hands raised.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I see Olympia. Okay, Olympia and then Carlin. Go ahead,
Hi
Olympia.
there. Thank you. So Jackie, thank you for giving us the updates. This process has been a little bit incongruous around what our committee has voted on, then what the city did, then what the committee received. So right now, you just mentioned that the DCAS has decided not to do any preservation evaluation until they get feedback from community engagement. But we had a clear, three meetings at this point where clearly the community came out and we did a resolution requesting that. So shouldn't the community board be saying about, like, aren't we, that's why we take all this time away to represent community and we ask for that. So this is very, for me, disconcerting the way DCAS has been behaving with back and forth with our committee.
Yeah, so that's why I'm also following up with the elected officers to see what we can do. But thank you for that input.
Okay, Carlin.
Yes. Okay. I attended that land use committee meeting last week, I think. Now, I would suggest that can the community board or the community engagement committee ask DCAS to stop the clock on a 90-day engagement period, get the structural analysis. This way, the community advisory board has the information. You can make a better decision when you have all the information. Why make a decision and then go back to do the analysis? It's kind of backwards.
This question was discussed multiple times, and what we can do is that we're going to bring the information to DCAS to see if they would reconsider that decision to do the preservation analysis before the engagement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Carlin, and thank you, Jackie. Okay, so now we're going to go on to transportation.
Good evening, everyone. There's no resolutions for us to report on. It was just an update from on the Avenue B open street with FDNY and DOT on the call about whether there's been some improvements going up Avenue B for FDNY. There has been some slight improvements as what FDNY discussed. There was also questions from the community in regards to some of the parking spots and things like that, and help continuously to try to help the improvements on Avenue B going forward. And we'll wait for DOT to come back probably November with those answers. But that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, and our last committee, economic development.
Thanks, Alicia. Hi, everyone. We have one resolution for economic development. It's a pretty short one. It's a resolution to return Sidewalk Cafe application fees. So a number of businesses, particularly restaurants, have applied for Sidewalk Cafe licenses and are sort of stuck in a process that isn't really moving forward. And this is just a request for the Department of Consumer Affairs to return those fees that can range up to a couple of $1,000s. Because small businesses could really use that money during this time.
Like Anisha Stephen?
Yeah,
you was
loving Susanna. Pardon?
What is that? What was that?
Sorry, somebody unmuted themselves. I took care of it. Go ahead.
Okay.
I don't know if there are any questions about the resolution or any comments or changes.
Okay, I don't see anybody's hand. No hands, Anisha.
Cool.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, I think Val, you wanted to say something. Was there new business?
You need to vote first.
Okay, sorry. Sorry. We need to take a vote. Roll call vote, Michelle.
Okay, David Adams.
Yes.
Thank you. Yaron Altman.
Yes.
Jesse Beck.
Yes.
Dominic Berg. Lee Berman.
Yes.
Carlin Chan.
Yes.
Jonathan Chu.
Yes.
David Crane.
Yes.
Felicia Cruikshank.
Yes.
Eric Diaz.
Yes.
Alistair Economakis.
Yes.
Shirley Fennessy. Brian Gillen.
Yes.
Deborah Glass.
Yes.
Andrea Gordillo.
Yes.
Herman Hewitt.
Yes.
Trevor Holland.
Yes.
Linda Jones.
Yes.
Valentina Jones.
Yes.
Tatiana Jorio.
Yes.
Lisa Kaplan.
Yes.
Olympia Kazi.
Yes.
Joe Kearns.
Yes.
Michelle Cooper Smith. Yes. May Lee.
Yes.
Wendy Lee.
Yes.
Alicia Lewis Coleman.
Yes.
David Louie. Ellen Liu.
Yes, except for SLA number 4, presently voting. There's a conflict. I work for one of the principals other businesses.
Okay. Michael Marino.
Yes.
Alex Militano.
Yes.
Michael Perlis.
Yes.
Tariq Ramos.
Yes.
Paul Rangel.
Yes.
Carolyn Ratcliffe.
Yes.
Damaris Reyes.
Yes.
Richard Ropiak.
Yes.
Thomas Rosa.
Yes.
Robin Chattel.
Yes.
Heidi Schmidt.
Yes.
Larissa Scheinberg.
Yes.
Clint Smeltzer.
Yes.
Anisha Stephen.
Yes.
Sandra Struther.
Yes.
Josephine Velez.
Yes.
Troy Velez.
Yes.
Rodney Washington.
Yes.
Kathleen Webster.
Yes.
Jackie Wong.
Yes.
Ricky Wong.
Yes.
Thank you.
Now, I believe Val, you had some new business you wanted to share.
Yes, I represent oh, sugar, okay. I represent the Community Board 3 on the World Trade Center committee. And so they have, in the past, community-based organizations have provided letters of support. What they want is that they want a letter of support for their application to extend the World Trade Center Health Registry for another 5 years, beginning July 2021. And the letter needs to be submitted by October 15th to the Public Affairs Manager of the New York City Health Department and World Trade Center Health Registry. So community-based organizations have done it in the past, and if you're interested, you're a community-based organization, it might be something that you want to do in terms of extending, supporting extending the funding for another 5 years. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Val, thank you so much. Is there any other new business? Anyone like to share anything? Okay, Carlin.
Hold on, let me just mute my TV. This is not new business, but I made it late for the public session. I'd just like to extend an invitation to everyone on the community board. There's a public candlelight vigil for the 4 homeless men who were killed at Chatham Square last week. It's on October 5th from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. There will be no speaking, no politicking. It's just for come by and light a candle or something. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlin, for that. Can you email us that? Because that would be great. Like we could have shared that.
I don't think he means last week, though, right? There was no one killed there last week. Is
No,
that
no,
correct?
no.
Last year.
Last year. Yeah,
Okay.
last year. Thank you for that clarification. Anyone else have any new business they wish to share at this time? Okay, any old business at this time? Okay, that being said, can I have a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting?
Motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Everybody's ready to go. Thank you so much. Have a great week. And stay warm, everybody, and stay safe.
Take care.
Okay, bye now.